The twin moons of Leora hung low in the sky as the alien city prepared for its most important ceremony. Lanterns floated above the tall silver towers, and banners of both alien and human colors swayed in the cool night air. It was the day when a daughter of Leora would be sent as a bride to the distant human colony across the stars. This marriage was more than tradition. It was a bridge between two worlds. The people gathered in the great courtyard, whispering in excitement and worry. The chosen bride was supposed to be Solara, the elder daughter of the noble house of Vera. She was tall, graceful, and trained from childhood to walk the path of duty. Everyone believed she would stand proudly before the humans, representing her people with honor. But inside the quiet chambers of the house, a different story was unfolding. Solara sat pale on her bed, her hands trembling. Fear clouded her eyes. She whispered, "I cannot go. I cannot leave this world. I do not want to marry a human." Her voice shook with desperation. Beside her stood her younger sister, Leora, named after the very planet they lived on. Unlike her elder sister, she was soft-spoken, gentle, and often unnoticed in great halls. She was not prepared for politics or diplomacy. She was the quiet one, the one who preferred gardens over courts. Yet that night, as she looked at Solara's frightened face, Leora felt a heavy weight settle on her heart. The treaty was fragile. If no bride was sent, humans might see it as an insult. Tension could rise and war could return. "Then I will go," Leora said softly. Solara's eyes widened. "No, you cannot. You are not meant for this. You do not have the training. They will see you are not me." But Leora's gaze was steady. "They will not know. I will go in your place. For our family. For peace." The elder sister shook her head, but her weakness betrayed her. In truth, Solara wanted someone else to carry this burden. Tears filled her eyes as she embraced her younger sister. "If you go, then you must never tell them who you are. You must live as me." Leora nodded. Her heart was trembling, but her choice was clear. The dawn came quickly. A grand procession filled the streets. Musicians played solemn songs as the noble family walked to the great spaceport. Leora, dressed in a silver bridal gown, moved forward with quiet steps. Her face was calm, but her soul was heavy with fear. Crowds whispered as they saw her beauty. "The daughter of Vera walks with grace," they said. "She will bring honor to our people." None of them knew the truth, that the woman they admired was not the elder, but the younger sister who had chosen to bear the weight. At the spaceport, the giant human transport ship awaited. Its steel hull glowed under the sun, a sharp contrast to the crystal buildings of the alien city. Human soldiers stood in neat lines, their uniforms strict and disciplined. The air was filled with a mixture of excitement and tension. A human envoy stepped forward, bowing slightly. His voice was deep and formal. "On behalf of the human colony, we welcome the bride of Leora. She will travel with us and be received with honor." Leora lowered her head, hiding the storm of emotions inside her. She stepped onto the shining ramp of the ship, each footstep echoing like a final goodbye. Behind her, her parents and sister watched with heavy hearts. None dared to stop her now, for the decision had been made. The inside of the ship was strange and cold. Smooth metal walls replaced the warm stone of her home. Machines hummed with quiet power, and glowing panels lit the halls. The humans walked with confidence, their boots striking the floor with sharp rhythm. They led her to a private chamber prepared for her journey. A wide window showed the stars beyond, endless and silent. As the engines roared, the planet Leora shrank behind her. The only home she had ever known was fading into the dark. She pressed her hand against the glass, whispering a silent promise. "I will not fail. Even if they discover who I am, I will stand strong. For my sister, for peace." Days passed in quiet travel. The humans treated her with respect, offering her food and comfort. Yet she felt the distance between their worlds. Their words were direct, their ways strict, so different from the gentle traditions of her people. She tried to learn, listening carefully, watching how they lived. At night, when all was silent, she thought of her sister. Did Solara regret letting her go? Did her parents worry she would be exposed? Leora's heart carried both fear and determination. She had stepped into a life not her own, but there was no turning back. Finally, the ship reached the human colony. From the window, she saw the great settlement built on a rugged world. Towers of steel rose from the ground, surrounded by forests and mountains. Bright lights glowed, and human banners waved proudly. As the ship landed, drums thundered and horns echoed. Soldiers lined the landing field, their eyes fixed forward. At the center stood the commander of the colony. He was taller than the others, his posture strong, his presence commanding. His uniform carried marks of honor, and his gaze was sharp as he watched the ramp lower. Leora stepped down slowly, her silver gown flowing with each step. The crowd was silent for a moment, watching the bride of Leora's people descend. The commander's eyes locked onto her. Something flickered across his face, not just duty but interest. He studied her with intensity, as though seeing not just a bride of politics but a person beyond the treaty. And in that first meeting, before any word was spoken, she felt a strange shift in the air. Her secret was still hidden, but destiny had begun to move. That night, as the colony prepared for the official welcome ceremony, whispers spread among the humans. The commander's eyes never left her, they said. He could choose any bride to stand at his side, but it seems he has already chosen. Leora sat alone in her chamber, staring at her reflection. She was not Solara, yet the humans believed she was. Would they still look at her the same if they knew the truth? Or had something already changed? Something that belonged not to her sister, but to herself. The journey that began with a substitution was now leading her toward an unknown path. She did not know what awaited her, but one thing was clear. The commander had seen her, and his choice had already begun to shape her fate. The sun rose slowly over the human colony, painting the rugged landscape in gold and silver. Towers of steel glimmered under its light, and the sprawling settlement seemed alive with movement. Soldiers marched through wide streets, children played near the outer walls, and traders prepared their stalls for the busy day ahead. Among it all, Leora walked quietly through the corridors of her new home, her silver gown trailing softly behind her. Though the humans were polite and respectful, she felt the weight of every pair of eyes upon her. She was not Solara, yet she carried her name and the expectation of an entire planet. Her heart beat faster as she approached the grand hall where the commander awaited. This was the moment she had imagined countless times during the long journey. Yet reality was far different from her thoughts. The hall was massive, filled with banners of both the human colony and her home planet. Soldiers stood at attention along the walls, their faces calm but alert. The air carried a faint hum of machines, and the soft sound of moving gears echoed through the chamber. Leora's steps were careful, measured, but each one seemed louder than the last. At the far end of the hall stood the commander. His presence was commanding not just by height or uniform, but by the way he held himself. He did not rush, nor did he need to. His eyes scanned the hall calmly, yet when they fell upon her, they lingered with a quiet intensity that made her pause. "Welcome, bride of Leora," he said, his voice deep but steady. "I am Commander Kale, leader of this colony. It is an honor to meet you." Leora lowered her head slightly, bowing in the custom of her people. "It is an honor to meet you, Commander Kale," she replied softly. She spoke in the human language, her accent careful yet flawless. Her voice carried a gentle sincerity that caught the attention of many in the hall. Kale studied her for a moment longer, as if searching for something beyond the words. Then, with a small nod, he gestured toward a seat at the head of the hall. "Please, join me," he said. "We will discuss the future of our people and the bond between our worlds." She walked forward, each step steady despite the storm inside her. As she sat, Kale's gaze did not waver. Leora felt an unexpected calm in his attention, a sense that he truly saw her, not just the title she carried, but the person she was. The council meeting began with discussions of trade, defense, and alliance strategies. Leora listened carefully, absorbing the words and ideas, though some concepts were strange to her. Humans and aliens had very different ways of thinking, yet she noticed something remarkable about Kale. He did not speak down to her, nor did he treat her as a mere symbol. He valued her presence, seeking her opinion on small matters and even acknowledging her questions with respect. Other council members whispered among themselves, watching closely. "The commander seems unusually attentive to the bride," one officer murmured. "Perhaps he sees something others do not." Despite her nervousness, Leora found her voice growing stronger. She suggested minor improvements in resource allocation and proposed ways for humans and aliens to share knowledge about farming and technology. Her words were simple, but they were clear and practical. Kale nodded approvingly, and she felt a small spark of confidence ignite inside her. After the meeting, the commander escorted her to the colony gardens, a place she had not yet seen. Vast terraces stretched across the hillside, filled with trees and flowers from both planets. Streams of clear water flowed through carved channels, reflecting the sunlight in sparkling patterns. Leora's eyes widened in wonder. "This is where we find peace," Kyle said quietly, standing beside her. "Even in times of duty and politics, it is important to remember why we build and fight. For moments like this, for life itself." She turned to him, meeting his gaze. For the first time since leaving her home, she felt a sense of belonging, as though the distance between worlds had shrunk. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "Your people have made it alive, not just functional." Kale smiled faintly. "You notice the small things. That is a rare gift, especially among those who are trained to follow orders. Tell me, Bride of Leora, what do you see when you look at this colony?" Leora hesitated. She could not reveal her fear or the secret she carried. Instead, she spoke truthfully but cautiously. "I see possibility. I see that humans and my people can live together if we are careful and kind." Kale's eyes softened. "Yes, that is exactly what I hope for. It is not power or rules that make a colony strong. It is understanding and respect. And it seems you understand this better than most." Her heart fluttered. She did not expect praise, nor did she feel worthy of it. Yet something in Kale's tone was different from any other human she had encountered. He treated her as an equal, not a symbol, not a tool of politics. As days passed, Leora began to adjust to life in the human colony. She learned the routines of daily life, preparing meals in unfamiliar ways, walking among the soldiers and workers, and observing the ways humans solved problems with ingenuity and precision. She made small friends among the colonists, especially children, who were curious and unafraid of her presence. The commander often walked beside her, sometimes silently, sometimes offering small lessons about human culture and traditions. He noticed her careful attention, the way she asked questions not out of fear but curiosity. Slowly, a bond grew, a bond not spoken aloud yet unmistakable to both of them. At night, when the stars stretched endlessly above the colony, Leora would gaze at the twin moons of Leora far in the distance. She whispered a silent prayer of thanks. She had survived the journey, entered a new world, and earned the attention of a human leader. Yet she knew her secret still weighed upon her, and the fear of exposure lingered quietly like a shadow. One evening, Kyle found her in the gardens, standing beneath a flowering tree. "You carry a burden," he said quietly, though not unkindly. "I can see it in your eyes. You are more than the bride you were sent to be. What troubles you?" Leora hesitated, then shook her head. "It is nothing, just the responsibility of my role." He studied her silently, then smiled faintly. "I believe it is more than that. But whatever it is, remember this: you are not alone here. You have my trust and the trust of this colony. That is not given lightly." The words warmed her heart. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as a substitute for her sister, not as a political symbol, but as a person with her own thoughts, her own worth. The first human festival of the colony came soon after her arrival. Lights glowed along streets and towers, music played in the open plazas, and laughter filled the air. Leora walked among the crowds wearing a simple gown chosen by Kale, who insisted she experience the colony as both a guest and a part of it. Children ran to her, asking questions, showing her their crafts and games. Colonists offered her food and small gifts, welcoming her without prejudice. Leora's heart swelled with a quiet happiness she had never known on her home planet. Yet throughout the celebration, Kale remained near, observing her with that same intense attention. It was not possessive nor demanding, it was watchful, protective, and respectful. Leora began to understand something she had not anticipated. The commander had chosen her not because of duty or obligation, but because he saw the value in her courage, and in her honesty. As the festival lights flickered and the stars shone above, Leora realized that her journey had taken a turn. She had entered this world as a substitute, bearing a secret that could destroy everything. Yet here, in this moment, she was not just a bride of duty. She was a bridge between two worlds and perhaps the start of something greater. Days had passed since Leora's arrival at the human colony, and with each day her world grew larger and more complex. The colony was alive with energy, Yet its rhythm was different from anything she had known. Soldiers trained with precision, farmers worked tirelessly, and engineers repaired machines with methodical care. Every part of the colony moved in harmony, yet it was clear that life here demanded discipline and quick thinking. Leora adapted slowly. At first, the new customs overwhelmed her. She struggled to understand the human tools, their schedules, and even their greetings. Yet she observed carefully, learning more with each passing day. In quiet moments, she would find a corner to sit and watch. She noticed how humans supported one another, how they solved problems not with force but with logic and cooperation. She admired this, for it was different from the ceremonial, structured life she had known on Leora. The commander, Kale, often accompanied her during these moments. He did not force conversation, but he offered guidance when she needed it. His presence was quiet but steady, giving her a sense of security. "You are learning quickly," Kale said one morning as they walked through the colony's gardens. The sunlight reflected off the metal towers, painting warm patterns on the ground. "Most would be lost after a few days, but you seem to understand more than you let on." Leora lowered her eyes, feeling both pride and worry. "I try," she whispered. "I must not fail. Not for my sister, not for my people, not for this colony." Kale nodded, understanding more in her words than she said. "You carry a heavy responsibility," he said softly. "But you are not alone. Trust yourself, and trust those who wish to help you. That is the beginning of strength." For the first time, Leora felt a fragile hope taking root. She was more than a symbol of alliance. She was a person, with choices and value, even in a world that was not her own. The bond between Leora and Kale grew slowly, like a river carving its path through solid rock. It was not loud or obvious, but it was steady and undeniable. Kale included her in meetings, asking her opinion on minor matters, and he always acknowledged her suggestions with respect. Other colonists noticed the closeness between them. Whispers floated through the corridors. "The commander seems to trust her more than any other human or alien here," one soldier said. "I have never seen him look at anyone like that," another replied. Leora felt both comfort and fear in this attention. She appreciated Kyle's trust, yet she knew her secret. She was not the elder sister Solara, remained unspoken. One day, if the truth came out, it could destroy everything she had worked to build. Life in the colony was not without challenges. Humans were practical, sometimes blunt, and Leora had to navigate their ways carefully. She learned to cook meals suited to their tastes, to speak their language with clarity, and to understand their social customs. The small mistakes she made, mispronounced words, unfamiliar gestures, were met with patience by Kale and others. Yet there were moments when she felt the weight of her deception. When someone mentioned her elder sister or spoke of her homeworld's traditions, her heart skipped. She had to laugh or nod carefully, hiding the fear that her secret might slip. One evening, while walking through a quiet corridor, she overheard two colonists discussing the political implications of her presence. "If she is not the true daughter of Vera," one whispered. "It could upset the alliance." Leora's chest tightened. She hurried away before they noticed her, her mind racing. The thought of exposure was terrifying, yet she reminded herself of why she had come. To protect her family, to protect the fragile peace, and to prove that even a quiet, gentle person could carry great responsibility. Kale seemed to sense her struggles without her needing to speak. One evening he found her in the gardens, sitting beneath a silver-leaved tree. The stars shone above, casting a soft glow on the petals around her. "You carry much inside," he said, sitting beside her. "You do not need to face it alone." Leora looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I am afraid," she admitted quietly. "Afraid that one mistake, one wrong word could ruin everything. I am not who they think I am." Kale nodded, his expression serious but gentle. "I suspected something, but it does not matter. You are here and you are brave. You chose to take on this duty, even when it was easier to hide or run. That is what I see. That is why I trust you." Her heart warmed at his words. For the first time, she felt seen not as a replacement, not as a symbol, but as herself. A quiet strength began to grow inside her, a strength that came from understanding her own value and the respect Kale offered. The bond between them was tested in small ways. During a training exercise with the human soldiers, a group of young recruits struggled with the coordination of a defensive drill. Leora stepped forward, offering guidance she had learned from her observations of both her people and humans. Her calm instructions and careful attention helped the recruits succeed. Kale watched silently, a faint smile on his lips. "You have a talent for leadership," he said later when they walked alone. "It is not a loud or commanding talent, but it is real. People respond to it because they feel you care, not because you demand it." Leora felt a quiet pride but also a deep sense of responsibility. Leadership was not easy. It required patience, clarity, and honesty, qualities she hoped she could maintain even under pressure. As the days went on, Leora began forming friendships among the colonists. She spent time with the children, teaching them simple games from her home world. She walked with farmers and engineers, learning their crafts and sharing small stories of her people. Her gentle nature won hearts quietly, and she began to feel that she belonged, not as a guest or a symbol, but as a valued member of the colony. Yet even as these bonds grew, the secret of her identity remained a shadow she could not ignore. Sometimes she would sit alone at night, gazing at the twin moons of her home planet in the distant sky. "I hope they never find out," she whispered. "I hope my actions prove more than any title or name ever could." Kale often joined her in these quiet moments. They did not always speak, but their presence together was comforting. He never pressed her for answers, never demanded explanations. His trust in her was steady, and it allowed her to trust herself as well. A small incident tested their fragile bond. A rival envoy from a neighboring human colony arrived, curious about the bride of Leora. He observed Leora closely, questioning her on traditions, skills, and knowledge. Though she answered carefully, he seemed suspicious of her youth and calm demeanor. Kale stood beside her, protective but composed. "She is exactly who she needs to be," he said firmly. "She represents our alliance as we agreed, and that is what matters." The envoy hesitated, realizing that Kale's words were not empty. The commander's trust in Leora was clear, and it lent her credibility. For the first time, Leora realized that Kale's support was more than personal. It was a shield for her, a strength that allowed her to navigate this new world with confidence. The days became weeks, and the bond between Leora and Kale grew more resilient. They faced challenges, learned new customs, and discovered the limits and strengths of their connection. Leora was no longer just a substitute for her sister. She was carving a space for herself, a place where humans and aliens could see cooperation and understanding as the true measure of strength. In quiet moments, she reflected on her journey. She had left her home as a replacement, carrying fear and uncertainty. Now she stood as a person in her own right, slowly proving that kindness, intelligence, and courage could change perceptions and forge connections even across worlds. Kale had chosen her, not for appearances or duty, but because he saw her value. And in that choice, Leora found the courage to believe in herself and in the fragile bond forming between human and alien, a bond that could withstand doubt, fear, and even the shadows of secrets yet to be revealed. Life in the human colony had settled into a steady rhythm, yet beneath the calm surface, tension began to stir. Leora had grown more confident in her role as the bride of Leora, learning the ways of humans and slowly building trust among the colonists. Her bond with Commander Kale had deepened, founded on respect, understanding, and quiet trust. Yet the shadow of her secret, the truth that she was not her elder sister, Solara, still hovered over her like a storm cloud waiting to break. The first signs of trouble came with the arrival of a human political envoy. They had come from a neighboring colony, sent to observe the alliance and ensure that all agreements were being honored. Their leader, a stern man named Darius, carried himself with an air of authority that demanded attention. When Leora was introduced, Darius studied her closely, his sharp eyes noting every detail. "You are the bride sent from Leora?" he asked, his tone polite but questioning. "Yes," Leora replied calmly, keeping her posture straight. Her hands were folded in front of her, hiding the small tremble that ran through her body. She had prepared herself for scrutiny, but Darius's intensity was sharper than she had expected. Kale stepped forward beside her. "She is the official representative of Leora," he said firmly. "Her presence here is authorized, and she carries the trust of her people." Darius did not respond immediately. He merely nodded and observed her silently. Leora could feel the tension rising in the room. Even with Kale's support, she understood that any small misstep could lead to doubt or suspicion. Over the next few days, Darius questioned her repeatedly about her homeland, customs, and even her family. He asked about Solara, hoping perhaps to test her knowledge. Each time Leora answered carefully, speaking truths but avoiding details that might reveal her substitution. Kale watched silently during these sessions, his expression calm but alert. Leora sensed his silent support and drew courage from it. Despite the stress of the questioning, she remained composed, showing the poise and intelligence that Kale had already recognized in her. Yet even as she maintained her composure, whispers began to spread among the colonists. Some wondered why the commander seemed so invested in her well-being. Others questioned whether she truly was the elder daughter of the noble house. Leora felt the weight of their curiosity like a constant pressure. Every smile, every polite word, every nod had to be measured carefully. The real test came one evening during a formal gathering in the colony's council chamber. Leaders from both human and alien communities were present, discussing trade, resources, and future cooperation. Leora sat beside Kyle, her hands resting calmly in her lap, as Darius raised questions that challenged not only her knowledge but her credibility. "You speak well of your homeworld," Darius said, his voice polite but sharp. "Yet some customs you describe differ from what we were told by the official records. How do we know you truly represent your people?" The chamber fell silent. Eyes turned toward Leora, and she felt a familiar tightness in her chest. For a moment panic threatened to rise, but she steadied herself. She took a slow breath and spoke, her voice clear and steady. "I speak only what I have learned from my family and from our traditions," she said carefully. "There may be differences in interpretation, as every culture grows and changes with time. My loyalty is to both my people and the alliance we have formed here. That is my truth." Her words hung in the air, measured and calm. Kale's gaze met hers, steady and reassuring, as if silently saying, "I trust you." The other leaders exchanged glances, some nodding slowly. Though the tension remained, her honesty had begun to earn respect. Even so, the shadow of conflict was growing. News arrived from Leora's homeworld. Rival clans were unhappy with the substitution, claiming that sending the younger sister instead of Solara dishonored the treaty. Messages arrived demanding explanations, and some threatened to withdraw support from the alliance. Leora read the letters in private, her hands trembling slightly. The weight of her decision pressed heavily upon her. If her secret were revealed, not only would she lose her position, but the fragile peace between the human colony and her people could collapse. Kyle entered the chamber quietly, noticing the strain on her face. "They cannot shake the bond we have formed," he said softly. "Your actions here, your courage and your honesty, these speak louder than words on paper. Do not doubt yourself." Leora nodded, grateful for his reassurance, yet fear lingered. She had stepped into a world not her own, and now she faced forces from both worlds that could challenge everything she had built. Tensions rose further when an alien envoy arrived, demanding an audience with Kale and Leora. They spoke harshly, accusing the colony of deception and questioning why Solara had not been sent. Their tone was sharp, and their words carried the weight of their people's anger. Kale stood firmly, his posture unyielding. "Leora represents her people with integrity," he said. "Her presence here is not a mistake, nor is it dishonorable. She has earned our respect through her actions, her decisions, and her dedication to both our worlds." The alien envoy hesitated, clearly taken aback by Kale's conviction. Leora felt her heart race. She wanted to speak, to explain the truth, but she knew that revealing her identity now could ignite a larger conflict. Instead, she bowed respectfully, showing that she accepted the scrutiny without fear. Her calm composure, combined with Kale's firm support, began to sway even the most critical observers. They realized that she was more than a bride sent for political reasons. She was a person capable of courage, wisdom, and leadership. Despite the growing respect, Leora felt the strain of constant attention and tension. She began to understand that leadership and diplomacy were not just about titles or appearances. They were about choices, actions, and trust. She worked tirelessly, learning from Kale and observing the humans around her, while always being mindful of her secret. At night, she would often sit beneath the colony's silver-leaved trees, gazing at the stars. Kale sometimes joined her, offering quiet conversation or simply shared silence. These moments gave her a sense of stability and courage. She realized that the bond between them was not just personal, it was symbolic of the potential for cooperation and understanding between two very different worlds. One evening, Kale spoke softly as they walked through the gardens. "The challenges we face are not simple," he said. "There will always be those who doubt, who question, who oppose. But what you have done, your actions, your courage, your honesty, they matter more than appearances or titles. That is the bond that will hold this colony together." Leora felt a warmth in her chest, a fragile but growing confidence. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Conflict, suspicion, and the threat of exposure would always linger. Yet for the first time, she believed that she could face these challenges, not as a substitute but as herself, and as someone who had earned trust through courage and honesty. The colony's festival approached, and with it, the presence of humans and aliens from neighboring settlements. Preparations filled the streets, and Leora found herself busy with ceremonies, greetings, and coordination. Every interaction required care. A wrong word, a small mistake could trigger misunderstandings or anger, yet she handled it with grace. She guided alien guests through the customs of the human colony, helped translate small disputes, and showed kindness and patience that impressed even the most critical observers. Her quiet leadership became visible to all, and Kyle's presence by her side lent her strength. Through these challenges, Leora began to feel that she was no longer merely a symbol of alliance. She was a bridge, a living example of what humans and aliens could achieve together. The shadow of conflict was still present, but it no longer paralyzed her. Instead, it became a test of her courage, her intelligence, and her growing bond with Kale. As night fell on the day of the festival, Leora stood with Kale overlooking the colony from a high terrace. The lights of celebration flickered below, music and laughter filling the air. The twin moons of her homeworld shone faintly in the sky, a reminder of the journey that had brought her here. Kale's gaze met hers. "You have done well," he said quietly. "The challenges are far from over, but you have shown strength that is rare even among leaders." Leora smiled faintly, feeling the weight of his words settle into her heart. She had faced doubt, scrutiny, and the threat of exposure. Yet through it all, she had maintained her courage, her honesty, and her determination. The future was still uncertain. Rival factions, political envoys, and the possibility of her secret being revealed hung like clouds over the colony. But for the first time, Leora felt a quiet confidence that she could face whatever came next. Her bond with Kale had become more than trust. It was a shared understanding, a fragile but growing connection that could withstand suspicion, anger, and the shadows of conflict. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead, proving that courage, honesty, and understanding were the strongest bridges between worlds. The colony had grown quiet under the soft glow of the twin moons that night. Though the festival had passed, the air was thick with tension. Rumors from neighboring alien clans had reached the colony, threatening to undo the fragile peace that had been built. Messages had arrived from Leora's home planet, demanding explanations for the substitution of the younger sister. Some were polite, others sharp and threatening. Leora sat alone in her chamber, her hands folded in her lap. She stared at the window where the stars stretched endlessly across the sky. Her heart felt heavy. She had learned much during her time in the human colony, about their ways, their strength, their wisdom, but she knew the moment of truth was coming. Her secret, if revealed, could spark conflict between two worlds. A gentle knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Commander Kyle entered quietly, his steps soft on the metal floor. His expression was serious but calm, as if he carried both the weight of the colony and reassurance for her. "You have done well," he said softly, standing beside her. "The challenges have been great, but you have shown courage, intelligence, and honesty. These are qualities that matter more than tradition or titles." Leora looked up, meeting his steady gaze. "But what if they find out? What if my secret destroys everything?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Kale placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we face it together. Truth can be frightening, but hiding it can be worse. You are not alone in this." The next morning, an urgent council meeting was called. Representatives from both the human colony and neighboring alien clans gathered in the grand hall. The air was tense, filled with quiet whispers and wary glances. Leora walked beside Kale, her silver gown flowing softly behind her. She held her head high, her steps measured and steady, though her heart raced with fear and anticipation. Darius, the human envoy from a neighboring colony, was among the guests. He watched her closely, noting the calm and composed manner she displayed despite the scrutiny. The alien representatives, some of them relatives of her family, exchanged cautious glances. Leora knew the moment had come to stand not just for herself, but for the peace of both worlds. Kale spoke first, his voice commanding but respectful. "We are gathered here to discuss the alliance and the ongoing relationship between our peoples. The bride of Leora herself, has played a key role in strengthening trust and cooperation. Her actions have shown courage, wisdom, and integrity." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some nodded in agreement while others shifted uncomfortably. Leora took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I am not the elder daughter," she began, her voice clear and steady. "I went in my sister's place to protect my family and to honor the alliance. That was my choice. I could not allow fear or duty to stand in the way of peace." Silence filled the chamber. Eyes turned toward her, some curious, others skeptical. Leora continued, her words measured. "I know my presence here may raise questions, but I ask you to see not only the position I hold, but the actions I have taken. I have worked to understand both humans and aliens, to build cooperation, and to protect the peace we all value." She paused, letting her words sink in. Her hands were steady, her posture calm. The courage she had developed over weeks of challenge shone in her eyes. Kale stepped beside her. "She speaks the truth," he said firmly. "Titles and appearances are not what matter most. What matters is character, dedication, and the ability to act wisely. Leora has proven herself in every way." Some of the alien representatives whispered among themselves, clearly impressed by her courage and Kyle's support. The tension in the room began to ease, replaced by cautious respect. Then, the lead envoy from Leora's home planet, a stern woman named Verita, spoke. "Your choice was unusual," she said, her voice sharp but not cruel. "Sending the younger sister instead of Solara was unexpected. How can we trust that this alliance remains honorable?" Leora stepped forward, meeting Verita's gaze without fear. "I understand your concern," she said softly. "I am not Solara, but I am committed to the same values, the same duties, and the same honor that she would have carried. I have acted with honesty, courage, and respect. The alliance is stronger because of our cooperation, not weaker because of my choice." The hall was silent again, but this time the silence carried thoughtfulness rather than suspicion. Kale's calm presence and the clear conviction in Leora's voice had begun to sway even the most doubtful. Verita studied her, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps courage and honesty are more important than titles." She looked toward Kale. "Your trust in her speaks volumes about what we must value in this alliance." Relief washed over Leora, but she knew the work was not done. Rumors and tensions still lingered, and other colonies and clans would watch closely. Yet in that moment she felt the power of her own choices. She had stepped into a world that was not her own, faced scrutiny and doubt, and proven herself not through words alone, but through actions and integrity. The following days were filled with negotiations, discussions, and joint activities to strengthen the bond between humans and aliens. Leora worked tirelessly, offering insight, guidance, and diplomacy at every turn. Kale remained at her side, quietly observing, guiding, and supporting. Their bond had become a symbol of what cooperation and understanding could achieve. A bridge not built on fear or obligation, but on trust, respect, and shared courage. Through their joint efforts, small victories began to appear. Trade routes were improved, shared technologies were implemented, and joint projects between humans and aliens flourished. The once tense relationships began to transform into cooperation, and the whispers of doubt were replaced with cautious admiration. Yet even as progress unfolded, Leora knew the moment of personal truth had come. One evening, as she walked through the colony gardens under the soft glow of the moons, she turned to Kale. "I am no longer a substitute," she said quietly. "I am myself, and I must live as such, even if it means facing challenges I cannot predict." Kyle nodded, his gaze steady. "You have already proven yourself," he replied. "The path ahead may still be difficult, but you are not alone. Your courage, your choices, and your heart have earned trust, and that is stronger than any fear or doubt." In that moment, Leora realized that the journey that had begun with substitution and fear had transformed into something far greater, She had become not just a bride, but a bridge, a leader, and a symbol of what could be achieved when courage and integrity led the way. The colony celebrated a final festival to mark the strengthening of alliances. Humans and aliens mingled freely, exchanging stories, games, and laughter. Leora walked among them, her heart light but aware of the responsibility she still carried. Kale stayed close but gave her space to engage and lead. Children ran to her, asking questions about her home planet and her experiences. Colonists thanked her for guidance and cooperation. Leora smiled, realizing that acceptance and respect were not granted because of birth or title, but earned through courage, honesty, and dedication. At the center of the celebration, Kale took her hand gently. "You have done more than any of us expected," he said softly. "You have shown that trust, courage, and understanding can bridge worlds. That is the legacy you are building." Leora felt a quiet warmth. The fears, doubts, and shadows that had haunted her were still present, but they no longer controlled her. She had faced the truth, proven herself, and chosen her own path. The future was not certain, but she was ready to face it with strength, dignity, and the bond she had forged with both humans and aliens. As the moons of Leora rose high in the sky, Leora and Kale stood together looking over the colony. She felt a sense of belonging, not as a substitute or a symbol, but as herself. The fragile bond they had built, tested by conflict and doubt, had proven stronger than any fear or obstacle. In that moment, Leora understood the true meaning of her journey. It was not about substitution, titles, or tradition. It was about courage, honesty, and choice, the power to act with integrity even in the face of uncertainty. It was about showing that humanity's strength lay not only in technology or force, but in compassion, understanding, and the ability to build bridges between worlds. The choice she had made to go in her sister's place had changed her life, and in doing so had reshaped the destiny of two worlds. Together, she and Kale had proven that trust and courage could overcome fear, and that bonds forged through respect and understanding could endure even the greatest challenges. For the first time, Leora felt truly at peace. She had faced the shadows of doubt and conflict and emerged stronger, wiser, and fully herself. And as the moon shone above, she knew that this was only the beginning of a brighter future for both humans and aliens alike.